It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions on a national stage defeated the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs 21-20 at Arrowhead to start the 2023 campaign 1-0. The team performed well in all facets of the game. We'll talk about what went right and what needs to be addressed in time for next Sunday's home opener against the Seattle Seahawks. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Yes, welcome to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Brzezinski. Drew, it's the 2023 NFL season, and we have our Lions roundtable as we review that huge victory over the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday night, 21-20. And joining me first is Justin Merriquin, Detroit's finest. Justin, how you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good, knocking off the Super Bowl champs in Arrowhead. Can't ask for a better start to a season, so looking forward to this Sunday home opener, Ford Field.
Asterisks be damned. It's a win. They're 1-0. Also joining us from Wisconsin via Rapid River, the Uper Brad Harrison. Brad, how you doing?
Forward down the field. That was a team that did not yield, boys.
Oh, they did not.
It took the 1-point lead with 7 minutes and 6 seconds to go. We played football for those 7 minutes. What a great way to start this season.
It's a great way to start the season. And we've seen good games in the past, right? We, as Lions fans, we're conditioned to look for that spectacular player of the game. You know, the Calvin Johnson, the Barry Sanders. We like seeing that. We love it. Everybody does. But rather have W's. Not that we didn't get W's with those guys, but this was a little different. I did a little different vibe going into this season. This game is a little different. We're going to jump right into it, guys. And can't say enough about how methodical this team was in their win. And Justin, what struck you at the end of the day, other than actually winning at Arrowhead, which is it's a hell of an accomplishment, no matter who was playing or not. And I'll touch on that right now. Kelsey and Chris Jones were out. We know that. So was Jamison Williams, and so was Emmanuel Mosley. Yeah, I know. Well, they're not the same. Well, yeah, they are. Jamison Williams is 12th overall selection last year, counting on him to be their deep threat. Not going to be there till week 7. And then Emmanuel Mosley was signed as a free agent, was pretty damn good with the Niners, and he was supposed to start. And we haven't seen him play yet. So, I mean, hopefully next week. But, win's a win. What were your thoughts, Justin?
I think the biggest thing that sticks out in my mind is the composure of the whole football team. Offense, defense, special teams. You're kicking off the NFL season in Arrowhead Stadium against the defending Super Bowl champs, and you just don't let anything get you down. I mean, there were waves of moments of ups and downs, good plays, bad plays, and they just brought it all together at the end of the day, and they came away victorious. So I think we've seen a maturation of this football team. We've seen players buy into the program and what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are selling, along with Aaron Glenn. All 53 men on this team and the front office and everyone believes that this team can win every single football game that they step on the field. And that was proven true in Kansas City.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Brad, how are you feeling after this one? What struck you as it really stood out in this one?
The development of the roster stood out to me. I mean, because all that post-game chatter about who wasn't playing, I will tell you right now, this roster that Brad Holmes has created is better than the roster the Kansas City Chiefs have. They've got the best player in the NFL right now, no doubt. But this roster, top to bottom, is better than the defending Super Bowl champions roster. And to Justin's point about composure, where were the penalties? Where were the turnovers? The things that NFL teams do when the quarterback doesn't play at all in the preseason. All these guys didn't play in the preseason. Just like they ended the year before, and it was just great to see a continuation of how it ended. And what a joy this team brought us. So I'm just thrilled and can't wait for Sunday.
Before we jump into the statistical side of it and how some of the individual players went, this game, and it was striking, and Lions win. Okay, so we'll take it. But looking at it afterwards and even during the game, I mean, it's sad when the official that they're using for replay analysis is even calling out the fact that the right tackle is lining up illegally on every snap, not occasionally, every snap, and actually was committing a false start nearly every snap because he couldn't handle Hutch. They finally had to call. Was it on the 4th and 20? They finally had to call it because he literally.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was.
It's like, wow. So, that kind of crap can't happen. I don't care who's playing. I don't care what game it is. That cannot happen. That's egregious. And I mean, honestly, they need to look into that. I mean, thank God nothing. I mean, it didn't really. I mean, it impacted the game, but thankfully the outcome didn't get impacted per se. But yeah, that's ugly. But overall, I mean, you guys are right. I mean, there was one fumble, the Marvin Jones fumble, which was a big one in the red zone. That hurt. But yeah, overall, a pretty clean game. And you mentioned composure. And this team definitely had it. And I'll tell you what, it really starts with the guy under center, Jared Goff. Justin, talk about Jared Goff and his performance.
Yeah, you just mentioned it, a little bit ago of him not playing a snap in the preseason versus, Patrick Mahomes playing a lot of series in the preseason. And like Brad's point about, where the turnovers, where the penalties and whatnot, we didn't, see any of that. And Goff, yeah, he missed, a couple throws here and there, but it's the first game of the season. I'm not making excuses. He's not, really in sync with his guys just yet, although he did, make a connection with Reynolds, as I texted you guys that night. If you go back, was it 3 or 4 years ago on Monday night when he was with the LA Rams, who was his top target that night? It was Josh Reynolds. So he connected big with him again. But overall, I liked his play. He didn't, hurt us. And, he did everything that was asked of him and just, kind of just managed that side of the football and came out with the W. So, I loved it. And on the road, too. Because that's kind of like the shtick on Goff is, yeah, he plays great at home at Ford Field. You take him away from Ford Field, doesn't play so great. But, we've seen it, in last season, a big game against New York Jets, he performed as well. So we're starting to kind of see him, Goff, I'm talking about, that is really starting to, rise to the occasion on these away games. And, he proved that, pretty big, against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Youper Brad, Jared, like Brad, like Justin said, he didn't hurt him, but he certainly was composed in the pocket. And talk about what you saw out there.
Complete control of the offense. I mean, and we're seeing what a consistent staff will do for a quarterback who is taken seriously. Boy, he's on a mission. He is on a mission, and he just has complete command of what's going on. I'm not saying he played perfectly. No one did, right? Like, we beat the Kansas City Chiefs without playing a perfect game. And so there's room to coach it up, but throwing the ball around, finding Amon-Ra, finding Reynolds, Marvin, rough start, but finding Khalif when it mattered. What a start for Sam Laporta as a rookie. And so Jared moved it around, had Kansas City's defense on their heels. They did not know where he was going with the ball most times. So you can't ask for more in week one.
Yeah, he was just rock solid. Like you said, I loved his composure in the pocket. I mean, the offensive line was outstanding overall. And we'll talk about that. But I mean, even when he was under duress a little bit, I think he got hit 3 times and was sacked once. And that's a very good defense over there too in Kansas City. That's a very good football team. Like you guys said, I mean, even though they were missing 2 of their better players, they still had Mahomes, and they're still a hell of a team. They're the defending champs, and Detroit handled it. And the crowd noise, I know Coach Campbell talked it up in the post game session that he fully expected Ford Field to be much louder than Arrowhead, but man, it sounded like it was pretty loud, and I think they handled that too. So that's nothing but kudos to the offense, the preparation, Ben Johnson and company. It was Ben Johnson versus Spags I don't know how many times I heard Spags' name. We got to have a drinking game one day. Every time you hear Spags, you got to drink. I mean, my gosh, we won't be able to stand. I mean, he's a great coach. Don't get me wrong, but Ben Johnson did his thing too, and it was an interesting chess match. We'll put it that way.
Spags again. Spags blitzed again. Spags blitzed.
Yeah. Look at him drop those blitzes. Yeah, I mean, it was smart. I mean, they did what they needed to do. It's not like Detroit blew up on them, but at the same time, Detroit's defense played very well too. But let's talk more about this offense. David Montgomery's first game as a Lion, Justin. Pretty solid performance, 74 yards and a touchdown. Talk about what you saw.
Very impressed. I've always been a fan of David Montgomery, even when he was with the Chicago Bears. Hard runner. I mean, I believe the first carry of the game, he almost got a first down, right up the gut. Credit to our offensive line, but he's such a tough runner. And that touchdown that he had, just blowing right past defenders and just no shot at getting him down. Like, this is a guy that's very powerful running the football, and you cannot take him down with one or two shots. You're really going to have to, kind of give it your all. I think aside from him, and I believe like Derrick Henry are probably the two hardest running backs to take down the league, on that first initial contact. So I was very impressed. What you saw in Arrowhead, you're going to see much more Ford Field, running the football, and he's got it all. And let me remind you, he can catch as well. We haven't really seen that on full display, but I think you will start to see that a lot of the season goes along. So not just Gibbs can catch, David Montgomery can catch as well.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that, Justin. And Brad, this is the first time I saw David Montgomery. Actually, I didn't get to go to camp this year. And I don't know I doubt you did either, being in Wisconsin. But I mean, talk about what you saw out there.
I saw a guy get 21 touches. And I thank the Chicago Bears for not running him that hard that whole career he's had over there in Chicago. I mean, it's always mind-boggling to me. Like he'd get positive yards for the Bears, and then you never see him again. So thanks for keeping him fresh, Chicago. That's great for him. Absolutely love that he falls forward. He has to love this offensive line. What a treat to run behind these guys. And once again, we're talking about week one. Oh man, we're talking about week one, and you could just watch and see the work that's been put in. These guys have been working, and it's paying off.
Yeah, no question about that. And joining him in that backfield, Brad, talk about the youngster Jahmyr Gibbs, his first NFL game. Didn't get a ton of touches, but he certainly made an impact. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, he will get more touches, right? Like Coach Campbell's already said it. But for the first NFL experience at Arrowhead Stadium with all that noise, all the hoopla that was going around that night, he belongs in that speed. Man, can you feel it when he turns that corner? It's something you don't get a chance to see. I can't think of the last time I've seen something like that. Maybe Javid Best that one time when he on Monday night against the Bears. But this guy's got a much brighter future. So kudos to Brad Holmes for doing what he did, and everybody had their laughs on that Thursday night of the draft, and try catching them.
They were awfully quiet on social media. I don't know why. I thought that was strange. I think there were a lot of people that actually short-circuited. All their mock draft AI engines failed them miserably. And I mean miserably. Because everybody that everyone had an issue with played pretty well. This was one of them. Justin, Jahmyr Gibbs, what struck you as in his performance on the field?
That he just handled himself very well, with the, amount of touches that, he received. And I know, we were all texting that night saying, feed, Jahmyr Gibbs the ball more. But I like what Campbell said in the post presser, saying they just wanted to get, his feet wet, get him acclimated to the speed of the NFL. And I think that's great. You're on the road opening against defending Super Bowl champs, and you just want to get his feet wet. Like, you're not even like throwing him out there fully. You're kind of just like, all right, we'll get you going. And then as we go along in the season, you're going to garner more carries and whatnot. But, let me remind the folks out there, he should have had a touchdown down the red zone. He's just too damn fast. He tripped and fell, not because of defenders, because of himself. That's how fast he is. I mean, a blink of an eye, he's kind of like Jameson Williams, where you think a defender's right on him a yard or 3 yards away from him, and he's just gone. And, he's very powerful too. We saw him put a defender on his back as well. So he's not just, a guy that's, finesse. He can power too. So this combination with him and Montgomery and this offensive line is going to be a lot of fun to watch this season.
Yeah, I was really impressed how he took hits. There were a couple of times he took some hits, and I mean, quite frankly, either spun off it or just stood there and then kept moving forward. It was pretty impressive. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him get the ball more. I'm going to give some fans some advice before we move on. We're all fans. We've been fans a long time. Some of us more than others, right? But I mean, you got to let go of the past, man. You can't keep worrying about, it's happened in 2014. Who cares? It's done. It's over with. Move on. Don't worry and quit second guessing every decision that's made. Start trusting in Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and this coaching staff. Start trusting in them. Okay, there's a reason he only had 9 touches. That was their plan. They won the game, folks. It's okay. Yeah, and to your point, Justin, Nate Campbell says he's going to get more touches. You bet he will. He's going to get more touches. Just everyone relax. Okay, this is a damn good football team, and it's uncharted waters. Brad, going back to the 90s, right? I mean, we had good teams then, but there were always some fatal flaws, and they always ended up showing their rearing their ugly head when you didn't need them to, right? So let's enjoy this ride. This is going to be a really exciting season. They're 1-0. Let's enjoy it. What's that?
I think it's going to be a perfect season, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to overcome some things. They overcame some things last Thursday night, right? This is football.
Absolutely.
And shout out to YouTube TV for that 4 games at once deal they got going, because I watched some football on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
These other teams have talent too.
Yeah,
And so this is, there's going to be ups and downs, but there's going to be a lot of ups here in Detroit.
You bet there will be. And here's Justin, you brought him up, Josh Reynolds. Talk about his performance. He actually led the Lions in receiving yards with 80 yards. He had a big 33-yard catch too. Talk about his performance.
Yeah, what you're going to find out with him, and my personal observation, he's very sneaky because he's kind of quiet up until, he bursted, late in the game with that big catch and run. So this is the type of receiver that is. You kind of forget about him, whether you're a fan or I guess if you're the, defending Super Bowl champs, you kind of forget that he's out there. Guy can catch the ball very well. He's very tall. He's got good possession of the football. He brings it down and he can run. He's got that, sneaky quick burst of speed. So I kind of like him because you kind of do forget about him with all the other playmakers that we have. But when you need him, he really shows up big. And, did he ever in Arrowhead? That was a great pitch and catch by Goff to Josh Reynolds. That was incredible.
Yeah, Brad, like Justin touched on earlier, I mean, these guys have been teammates before too. And that's definitely a go-to guy for him. Talk about Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, I mean, here I was waiting for week 7 when Jameson Williams comes back and thinking there's a desperation in my thoughts of a kid who got to come in and perform like a Pro Bowler right away. He's gonna have to earn a spot on the field because Josh has what we need in that spot. I'm not saying we don't need JMO, but I'm sure glad we have Josh Reynolds because he feels like that security blanket when Jared needs him.
Yeah, he's big. And he played very well. And really he was the third or fourth option in this game, right? I mean, because Marvin Jones was number 2. We know about St. Brown. We'll talk about him shortly. But Josh Reynolds is clutch. I mean, and he's really has to assume the role that DJ Chark had last year as being really a key number 3 guy, a bigger receiver. So they're definitely going to be counting on him. But yeah, he stepped up nicely. But let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Justin, this guy, all he does is create opportunities, score touchdowns, and he's already on pace for 1,000 yards already. Talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. What'd you like out there?
And to me, he's like Mr. Big Shot, former Detroit Piston Chauncey Billups. I mean, he's a guy that you can rely on and go to every single time, and something comes out of it and produces. He's just a continuation of what he did last season, and his humbleness and his desire to get better each and every game, each and every practice. It's evident in his playmaking ability, and that was amazing to watch. Him just streaking across and just crossing that goal line. It was just business as usual, and you're going to see a lot of this because like Ben Johnson's very crafty, and with the other playmakers that are lining up alongside him, he's going to get his. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Kind of like Barry Sanders back in the day. Barry's going to get his. So is Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's nothing you could do about it because he's that good.
Yeah, loved his performance. He's an absolute threat at all times. Brad, talk about what you saw out there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. What'd you like?
I saw a player who catches 202 balls off a jugs machine after each practice. Like, NFL players don't do that. He does. And he's just a pro, just an absolute pro, and someone that deserves a lot of credit for the attitude that these other players are taking on, because he's a leader. And it's, once again, only the beginning of this thing. Only the beginning.
I really see him as a cornerstone with this franchise. They have to try and re-up with him at some point. Now, they don't have to do it this year, obviously, but they may have to start talking pretty quick. Another prolific season this year, and they may have to start talking again. But the thing is, his work ethic's through the roof. Yeah, to your point, Brad. I don't think anybody works harder than this guy. He's hell-bent on proving everyone wrong that passed on him in the draft. Whatever motivates you to do your best, feed on it. That's great. But he's a specimen. He makes great plays. I say he's Johnny Morton with a little more rack, a little more run after a catch, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very good receiver right there. I really like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He played a solid football game, scored a touchdown. Business as usual. St. Brown's on his way once again, guys. But let's talk about the rookie Sam Laporta, another rookie, another reach by Brad Holmes. Oh boy, he didn't draft Michael Mayer. Oh, he took him early in the second round. Oh geez. All he did was catch 5 passes and actually made some really key blocks out there, which that's the kind of thing we're going to touch on going forward in the season. We quick cut analytics software, we're going to be using that. They're huge. They've done a great job with their software. We're going to be featuring that in our reviews going forward. Analyzing plays. It's going to be really good. But talk about Sam Laporta, if you would, Justin. What did you like about his performance?
I loved everything. I mean, here's a rookie tight end, from the University of Iowa, playing his, first NFL game, that counts, against the defending Super Bowl champs. And yeah, you look at the stat sheet, 5 catches, 39 yards, and you're just like, oh, okay, whatever. No, I don't want you to look at that. I want you to roll back the tape and look at his highlight reel blocks. That is crazy for a rookie tight end, the way that he was blocking and pushing people around. And he already has a grasp on that at the NFL level. You just don't see that with rookie tight ends. Sam Laporta, his football IQ is very high. His technique is really good, and he can only get better. So I was very excited with the blocking itself, but the catches and the touchdowns are going to come. And man, that's just going to add another layer of dimension to his game. But his blocking was superb, and you could tell he loved doing it too.
He looked good doing it. Brad, he got 5 targets. He caught all of them. And to Justin's point, key blocks, really did a nice job, especially on the Montgomery touchdown. He had a really key block in the hole on the second level. Talk about what you saw with him out there.
The Detroit Lions had 70 offensive plays last Thursday night. Sam Laporta had 58. A rookie tight end at Arrowhead Stadium. That is unreal. Thanks for reaching, Brad Holmes. Thanks for reaching. We'll keep moving on with Sam Laporta. And what you think about Brad Holmes, roster development. Who's in Minnesota making big bucks? Big bucks.
Yeah.
He's not on this team. Enjoy that, Viking fans. We got in a roster. We're paying a tight end what a rookie tight end makes. And he just played 58 out of the 70 snaps, caught everything that got thrown his way and blocked like a vet. Awesome.
He was outstanding. He was absolutely outstanding. And like you said, to your point, his blocking was really what stood out to me as well. Guys, before we jump to the defense, though, I think it's really important we talk about that offensive line because, Brad, you touched on it. With 7:01 left in the game, the Lions took the lead 21-20 and held on to that 1-point lead. A big part of that was that offensive line. It was good to see Big V back. I think he was really impressive in that game. Frank Ragnow, they hit several plays where he was pulling from the center spot over and looked very mobile, looked really good. I didn't personally see a whole lot of flaws in the game with that offensive line. A lot of really good technique. Really, I didn't see a lot. The crowd noise was an issue. There's no doubt, but they fought through it. Justin, what were your thoughts on the line?
Just a complete football game, and I think they had control of the line of scrimmage. If you roll back to tape, there's one instance where, Penei Sewell, I mean, he can handle his own, but, having a little bit of trouble and Jonah Jackson comes right over and cleans it up for him, helps out his guy. So the whole offensive line as a unit, playing their butts off and, the blocking was, superb, the pass protection, they just had everything going. And you just kind of felt it. Like when that ball was snapped, that, guys were getting pushed back. They were creating, gaps for the running backs to run through, giving Jared Goff plenty of time to throw the football. So you're seeing a unit that's played a lot of games together and they're really good. So now you're seeing that pay off. And I'm glad that we have those guys on our football team. It's literally a top 3 offensive line in the league, I would say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't trade him for anybody personally. Honestly, not a chance. Brad, Lions get the Chiefs in a 4th and 20 position. They finally decide to call a false start. And it was 4th and 25. The Chiefs missed their opportunity. What did you see there with less than 3 minutes to go in this game? The Lions get the football and they got to try and close this out. Chiefs got all their timeouts. They took care of business, didn't they?
They did take care of business. And they ran it, right? Like you had to run the ball in that instance. They kept the clock going. It couldn't be stopped. I mean, Kansas City's defense couldn't stop what this line was doing. What a treat! Once again, I think I've said that probably 3 or 4 times tonight. But what a joy to watch these guys. Decker got his ankle a little bit. Didn't miss a snap. He's been in a boot since. But just to see Vaitai out there, and he graded out as well as any player on the offense for that game. Just tremendous. We're still sitting with Glasgow. Didn't get a snap. Just waiting for the right time. So, the athleticism on that line is so impressive. Once again, not a perfect game. False start, everybody but the center, right? Like it was but that's where the growth is going to be, because there's some cleaning up to be done. There's some 3rd down calls that I'm sure Ben Johnson wants back, and that's not the best game the Detroit Lions are going to play this season. And that O-line is a big reason why.
Yeah, and I did get some of the criticism. We were chatting back and forth during that game as well, and we were wondering when Ben Johnson was going to open the playbook up. And you got to bear in mind too, you are dealing with severe crowd noise. It was a hyped crowd. You're on the road against the defending champions. You can't get too fancy. You got to keep it, and then even though they practiced against the Giants and the Jaguars, and I'm sure they got great reps out of that. It's still different playing in an actual game in front of the crowd. And I thought in hindsight, I thought that was probably why they were a little more conservative. but it paid off. Everything that they did, like to your guys' point, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it worked. They won the game. Now, what we knew the Lions would have a pretty potent offense because they did last year. The defense was the question because certainly the first half of the year, they were awful last year. The defense was awful. The second half, they got a lot better. They still ranked near the bottom in nearly every statistical category. That's how bad they were in the first half. But oh my, I think we saw a little bit of a resurgence here. And leading the way, another rookie. Although this one, the fans thought they did a nice job getting him. That wasn't a reach. Brian Branch, we had a lot of people projected to be in the first round, so he fell to them in round 2. That didn't look like a second round pick to me, Justin. What did you think?
No, and if you go back and watch our college football draft preview, we were pretty high on Brian Branch, and I myself, I don't know about the rest of you guys, watched a lot of tape on him, and he just made play after play after play at Alabama. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, in his whole career at the University of Alabama, he only missed 4 tackles, I believe. And that's incredible, playing in the SEC conference. So the lights were not too bright for Mr. Brian Branch, and he was right place, right time. And that's the thing about this kid right here. He's always around the football. If a play is made, he's around it, or he's involved in it, or he's the primary, concern for that play to be made. But I mean, the sky's the limit for him. I'm just very excited. And, another young kid that's making a huge impact on our defense. So, there's a lot more where that came from, and you're going to continue to see that as the season rolls along. But love Brian Branch. Love that he fell to us. Love it.
Yeah, definitely. Brad, what were your thoughts there? We did get to see Brian Branch a little bit in the preseason, but your thoughts of after his first game?
Well, he did fall to us. You're right. But Brad Holmes traded up to get him, so thank you, Green Bay. Hope you enjoyed training.
This is true.
For a few years.
About that.
Yeah. So shout out to Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Brain Trust for trading that pick so we could get Brian Branch. And Jack Campbell, right? Like a couple plays where both those guys are piling on tackles, and just great to see these young players. And there was some miscommunication in that secondary on Thursday night. Tracy Walker didn't play it down. That is talent on this roster, right? Like, it's so much depth. And the reason Tracy Walker didn't play wasn't because Tracy Walker's not a good safety. They got to Brian Branch has to be on the field. So I imagine the competition at practice will be intense with Mr. Walker, because there's no way he wants to watch football games.
The depth, the secondary impressed me. Now, initially, like you said, some communication issues out there. The Chiefs had some drops. Let's face it. Even that 50-yard pick 6 by Branch was more of a tip drill. That ball went right through. I think it was Tony's hands, right? Kadarius Toney. If Marvin, what's that?
Going for the tackle. He was going for the tackle, and he was able to shift.
Yeah, he actually caught it one-handed.
Yeah,
that's
he did that. He did that at Alabama all the time.
It was a very impressive catch, very impressive run, and he turned it on too. I mean, no one was catching him after he took off. So I think Mike Tirico even brought it up, like, so much for 40 times that he's got football speed, and it might have been Collinsworth. I'm not sure. I don't want Mike Tirico to be so maligned. I mean, fans, you got to. I mean, my gosh, I felt bad for him, actually. I'm like, this guy's been like a proponent for Detroit for years. I mean, the national media is like basically, excuse my language, is pissed on Detroit as a city and every sports team in Detroit. This has been one of the guys that have actually been a champion for the Lions and the city of Detroit. He lives in the area. He took a beating. I'm just like, relax, people, please. I get it. He mentioned asterisks. If you listen to the whole sentence, I mean, if you cherry pick part of my sentences, you can make me sound like a monster, guys. I mean, anybody could. I mean,
welcome to America.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't Troy Aikman poke fun at that last night? I believe in the broadcast.
He did. He did. Honestly, I think it's just a culture. People got to get out of it. It's like, if you're not miserable, you're not watching football. It seems like if you're a Lions fan, it's like, we got to get out of that mindset. Mike Tirico's okay. I mean, whatever. I'm not worried about what Mike Tirico said, because he's a damn good announcer. And like I say, he's a champion for the city. So relax.
Let's plenty of nationally televised Lions games to make up for it in the future,
especially if this guy's playing.
Woo!
Yeah. How about Hutch, Brad? You can line up 3.5 feet off the line. You can take an early step. If it's a 3 count, you can start moving on the 2 count. Hutch is still going to get at Patrick Mahomes. Talk about his performance. He was impressive.
Well, as I'm watching the games, my eyes are just drawn to him. I'm trying to not focus in on one thing while I'm watching a game live. I can't help it, man. He's so powerful, so quick. Everything he does is worth the view, right? Like Charles Harris, he was amazing. Like he graded out as good as anybody on our defense. But I had to go back and watch the film to see what did Charles do that was so great, and it really was great. But my eyes are just drawn to Aiden and what the pressure he puts on the man in front of him, and it's relentless. It is absolutely relentless.
Hey, Justin, we saw Aaron Glenn make an adjustment there. They did start moving him inside a little bit to try and counter that nonsense, and it seemed to work for a little bit there, because he was definitely getting some more penetration inside. But talk about his performance overall. What'd you see?
I'll just go ahead and say it. When I watch Aiden Hutchinson and look at him play, he just reminds me of J.J. Watt. Just, the relentlessness, the speed, just his pursuit. I mean, this kid has it all, and he's only getting better. I mean, just the second year, and we're already seeing, linemen trying to, beat him off the ball and and get off the ball pre-snap, because they're worried about, that first step, that penetration that he has, because once he gets up on you, it's over. And, the way that he can just dominate tackles. And like you said, they moved him inside as well, which I wanted to see more of. And I'm glad that Aaron Glenn did, switch things up, because, he's such a good bull rusher as well. So he's so multi-dimensional. He could play inside. He could play outside. Hell, you could have him at linebacker if you wanted to in some packages. He's that good. And, we've seen the playmaking ability last year of him intercepting footballs. So he just reminds me of J.J. Watt. He really does.
He's awesome. He's an athletic freak. I mean, we knew that when he was coming in as a rookie. Some of the stuff he could do, that Turkish getup is impressive as hell. I mean, but that he had a double spin move in that game, and he wasn't able. Credit to Patrick Mahomes, because he was under duress quite a bit. He didn't get sacked once, man. That guy is awesome. I mean, tip of the cap, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, we everyone knows he's an MVP and Super Bowl champion, but he is an impressive quarterback. He's a special player, but Hutch had him on the run quite a bit in that game. So we like that. And let's talk about a couple other guys. How about that linebacking core? And we talked about the line. We talked about the secondary, the linebackers. Derek Barnes and Alex Anzalone led the team with 6 tackles each, guys. Brad, your thoughts here? Because, I mean, like he said, we draft Jack Campbell, and he did get some reps. Rodrigo started last year. Both those guys are on the bench. These are your starters here. They look pretty good. Talk about them.
Well, Derek Barnes earned it. Just flat out earned the start and proved it against Kansas City. We knew Anzalone was going to be where he's at. It's just impressive. Barnes was challenged this offseason. This was not a guarantee, you're our starting linebacker. And for him to show the growth that he's had since he showed up here from Purdue is just a testament to what he's done. And it just helps our defense stay fresh. I mean, that play that Campbell had breaking up that pass near the end of the game was maybe you're not doing that if you're playing every snap, right? Like maybe you're a little winded, but we can rotate these folks through. So Anzalone, I wasn't on board initially, and then when they re-signed him this last time, like again, right? But once again, these guys, I tip my hat to both of them because they're not given anything. They've earned what they're getting. So shout out to both of them.
Yeah, you're right about and I don't think any of us are real pleased with Anzalone. Certainly early on when he started with the Lions, and I know Justin, you certainly were vocal about it, and I don't blame you. But you gave him his credit too. He started turning around, and he looked pretty good. What were your thoughts?
You're exactly right. Now, I'll go what Brad was saying about both Barnes and Anzalone. Yes, I did rag on him a lot, and deservedly so. And then I gave him his praise because, he rose his game to another level. Been playing phenomenal football, dating back to last season and now the first game of the season. And let me just point out Derek Barnes. I mean, looked like he was outside man, looking in last season with Rodrigo taking the starting job as a rookie, him kind of taking a step back, but credit to him of just going back to work in the off season. And he's made play after play after play, tackling has gotten better and whatnot. And I think just his assignment awareness has gotten a lot better too. And that's why Glenn has, put him in the starting role and giving him a lot of responsibility because he's shown now that, hey, I can do this and you can count on me to get the job done. So, and credit to Brad Holmes re-signing Alex Anzalone, being an anchor on your defense, a captain, a guy that, is a quarterback for your defense that could see the whole field. So without him, I don't know, where we would be defensive-wise. Still think we'd be a good unit, but with Anzalone there, it kind of just brings it together, and he's playing good football.
Yeah, no question about that. And I want to talk about some other folks that we didn't mention prominently statistically, but I was very impressed with number 2, CJ GJ, right? He is the heartbeat of that secondary. And here's what impressed me the most. Typically, what we would see a lot in the last couple of seasons, we would see a running play get stretched out to the outside. You might get some good gap discipline, but then whoever's got that outside contain is going to either get knocked under behind or they're going to whiff on a tackle, and a 2-yard loss or a 2-yard gain becomes a 10, 15-yard gain. Not so, yes, on Thursday. And I saw some sure tackling by number 2. I saw great gap discipline by Anzalone, Jack Campbell, holding their gaps. What did we see in the past? Jared Davis, God bless him, but no gap discipline. I mean, going to blow through a hole or miss the hole and trouble. Didn't see it. Saw very sound, fundamental, fast players moving fast, hitting hard, sure tackling. Guys, we haven't seen that in a long time. And to see that coupled with this offense, that's where I've got a good, warm, fuzzy feeling inside going into week 2 against Seattle. Anything else stand out to you, Justin, in that game before we move on to the Seahawks?
I'll echo what you said again. I love CJ Gardner-Johnson, very physical, and you're right. What has been known the past, few years of this football team, especially the defensive side of the football, the arm tackling, the not sure tackling, like you said, a 2-yard loss or 2-yard gain turns into 10, 15, or we've seen a number of times turns into a long touchdown, 30, 40, 50-yard touchdown, run plays or, screen passes and whatnot. So I liked the defensive side of like the gap assignments. They were composed, like I said earlier in the segment, and, they're playing to their assignments, and you're starting to see Aaron Glenn finally go take a sigh of relief going, this is what I wanted. This is the plan that he had in place when he came over here to be our defensive coordinator. Now you're seeing that pay off. And, these players are they're doing what he's asking them to do. He's not asking them to do anything crazy. And, I like Cam Sutton, even though I think that, pass interference, that was a little, ticky-tacky, whatever. And I like Kirby Joseph as well, out there. And shout out to Jerry Jacobs too, stepping right in. Again, he's an undrafted, free agent. And yeah, Mosley was hurt. He had to step in, starting cornerback. think he did a fine job.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Brad, anything that kind of caught your eye we didn't touch on yet?
I can't even believe we didn't touch on. I got two things. Okay. The first one is that false start at the end of the game. 4th and 20 to whatever it turned out being. 4th and 25, whatever. That was James Houston who was lined up out on 74. So you want to talk about a fresh set of legs coming at you. Like that offensive line, I had to think, what? Who is this guy? And, I've been dealing with Aiden Hutchinson all night. Now I got this coming at me. So, right, the depth of the team. But the one thing we haven't talked about is Dan Campbell. And going for or faking that punt on his own 17-yard line. Who does that? Dan Campbell does that.
A linebacker, not even a running back, a linebacker. Jalen Reeves-Maybin.
He got the first down for the Detroit Lions. I mean, try that on whatever FanDuel or whatever. I bet you that wasn't anything I could have bet on.
And to Brad's credit about Houston, if you go back and watch a tape where he blows past the tackle, he's literally on his knees crawling, like he's in the WWE or whatever, going after another wrestler and wraps up Mahomes. Now Mahomes did end up throwing the ball away, but man, Houston was on him in a hurry and did not let him go.
I feel bad for all these other teams. At this point, I just for the offenses that we're going to have to go against. You got no chance scoring 40-plus points, Seattle. That was in the past.
Yeah, it needs to be in the distant past, right? So let's talk about those Seahawks a little bit. They got beat. Was it 30-13? Yes, on Sunday.
Yeah,
by the Rams, but at home. They were not impressive. They definitely looked like they had a lot of rust on them. I certainly expect them to play better on Sunday against Detroit, but this is the home opener. This crowd's going to be hyped. Detroit owes them a little bit, don't they, Justin? I mean, this team took them to task, beat them 48-45. And, oh, by the way, that's the reason why the Lions were sitting at home even after beating Green Bay and finishing 9-8, because they lost that game and they lost a tiebreaker to Seattle.
Yeah.
What are you expecting on Sunday against the Seahawks?
Yeah, first of all, I still got a bad taste in my mouth. Thank you not to Baker Mayfield and Los Angeles Rams. No. But anyways, so what sticks out to me this Sunday, there's, 3 players on the offensive side of the football. It's going to be DK Metcalf. You got to really watch him. He can still stretch the field. Very strong, possession style receiver that has a lot of speed. Kenneth Walker III, the running back from Michigan State, can run, really hard. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State, very good possession wide receiver, can run really good routes. He knows all the route tree and stuff. So those 3 guys we're really going to have to watch out for. And, I don't underestimate Geno Smith. Yeah, he looked very Geno Smith of old, dare I say, on Sunday against the Rams. But let's not kind of underestimate that. I think he's still a good quarterback. So we just got to put all of it together and, kind of just revenge that loss from last season. But if for us on defense, if we can hold those 3 players in check, then, we've got a really good shot at, putting up some really high points on these guys.
Yeah, it's a tall order, but I think they're up for it. Brad, what are your thoughts? What's it going to take to beat this team?
Geno Smith was the greatest quarterback I watched last year. That game against Detroit, man. I never play better than that. And that won't happen again. They're fighting some injuries on that offensive line. And that's just too bad for Geno, because we're going to roll them. We're going to roll this defensive line at them and these defensive ends, and it's going to be a tough day. So shout out to what is about to happen at Ford Field. I can't wait to hear that crowd. I'd also like for our listeners who made it to Kansas City last week, you made a difference. You made a difference. I could hear you on my television chanting "Let's go Lions." And let's get this thing going. I mean, we all lived through the Red Wings fandom, right? There wasn't an NFL arena in America that didn't get overtaken by Red Wings fans.
It's true.
Again, we can do this again. So have a blast. Have a blast.
Yeah, I definitely expect Ford Field to be rocking, no question. It's sold out. There's a waiting list for season tickets now. We talked about that on our preview show. That has never happened. It's exciting. It really is. Predictions for this game, gentlemen. Justin, what are your thoughts? You got a score?
Yeah, I have a score in mind. I watched the bulk of that Rams and Seahawks game, and credit to the Rams, Stafford doing his thing, but that receiving core is, young without Cooper Kupp that's on IR for 4 weeks. And they still got it done on the road against, Seattle. So with that said and in mind, I believe, looking at the Lions here, I think they could put up 38 points. So I'm going to go 38-16 Lions, home opener win against the Seattle Seahawks.
I like it, 2-0. What do you think, Uper?
If you recall last year at the start of that season, and I'd come on here and I'd predict the Lions would win, and they wouldn't, and it got tiring, right? Like it just I'd wear myself out because I just believed they could do it and couldn't. And I said on the show, I will never pick the Lions to win until they win, and then I'll get on. I will never pick the Lions to lose until they lose right now. And they will win on Sunday. And it's not going to be close. I mean, Seattle, Metcalf is a problem, right? Geno Smith concerns. I'm not going to go back and watch last year's film. I'll let Coach Campbell figure out if he wants to do that. But is it a 35-10 kind of party at Ford Field? Have a blast, fans. Just go get it. Enjoy it. Sing till your throat is gone. Forward down the field.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I have this one at 31-17, Detroit beating Seattle. And I think the key is I don't think you can shut down that receiving core, Justin, because then you sprinkle in Tyler Lockett on top of that. It's scary stuff. You got to keep Geno Smith uncomfortable. You got to keep him. Now, he's dangerous when he's running, but at the same time, I wouldn't say he's a lethal passer on the run per se. He's just immobile. But you definitely want to make him uncomfortable, make him throw the ball when he doesn't want to, and mistakes will happen. So I think that's going to be the key, and I believe they'll definitely be able to drum up a pass rush. And here's the other thing too, guys. The game, I believe the Chiefs game was won in the trenches. I believe this will be as well. The offensive line, the defensive line, they can literally put a whole entire second unit out there. And, guys like John Kaminsky, Levi Onwuzurike, who played pretty well last game, James Houston, guys like that, they can spell Charles Harris and Hutch and McNeil. And it's a beautiful thing. And you could just see in the fourth quarter, the Lions offensive line absolutely took control and started mauling the Chiefs defensive line. And I expect a lot of the same here going forward at Ford Field. So like to see them go 2-0. We need Baker Mayfield to help us finally. And maybe beat the Bears in Tampa Bay and put them down 0-2 this year. And it wouldn't be a bad thing to see the Pack lose at Atlanta, although I think we'll see what happens there. But it'd be nice to be in first place all alone. Minnesota's got to go to Philadelphia. I believe they'll start 0-2 now as a result of that. So the Lions are in a position right now where they could get a couple game jump on two of the teams in the division real quick. And that's not to be discounted. This is a conference game. And as we well know, like we mentioned, it's an important game. You don't want to lose games like this. Not your home opener, not against a conference foe. So it's exciting. You got to love this. Like Brad, you touched on, man, there were times, God, Justin, we've been miserable talking about this team. There were times a couple of years ago, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was just like a broken record. Like
It's been pretty exhausting, and we just run out of things to say.
I'm trying to be more positive. I mean, Brad, you remember me in college. I mean, I was a nasty, venomous guy at times. I tried to, trying to be a more calm individual, right? More calm fan here. And I'm trying, man. I know you guys are too, but like I said, let's enjoy this. This is a special team. Let's see what happens after week 2, and we'll be excited to talk about hopefully a Detroit win over the Seahawks. For Justin Merrick, Detroit's finest, and for the View for Brad Harrison, my name is Drew. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. Go Lions, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday. Take care. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.